back to another episode of the All Things Dead podcast. This is a podcast for everything in the Walking Dead universe, from the OG, The Walking Dead, spinoff Fear the Walking Dead, other spinoff Walking Dead World Beyond, hopefully future movies and other spinoffs to be talked about as everything leads up to season 11, the ending of the original The Walking Dead. But until then, everything else can be found here. Recapping episodes, rewatching them, getting to episodes, talk about anything rumored or featured as we get to those points. Everything can be found here on the All Things Dead podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, if you are listening to this in audio form, please follow it, subscribe to it, leave a review, thumbs up, stars, all that stuff. If you're watching this on the video version, please like the video and leave a comment. The video version can be found at the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. That is my other podcast, which is sports with football, non-football, Marvel stuff, bunch of stuff. Until I decide to make a YouTube channel just for this, that's where it can be found. So go to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel, click the subscribe button and the bell notification to get notified when an All Things Dead podcast episode drops. If you go to the playlist section of the YouTube channel, you'll find the All Things Dead YouTube or the playlist with all episodes. So when you do that, subscribe, like, comment, share out, all that stuff. I greatly appreciate it. It helps with like the algorithm and all that good stuff. So during our recap, we are now on season 2, episode 2. Bloodletting is the title of this episode. We ended the season 2, episode 1 with, Carl got shot. You see a bullet go through a deer, and it was one of those things where, is there a hunter out there? Are they being attacked? And that's kind of how we ended that episode. And now we pick right up with The Walking Dead episode, season 2, episode 2, Bloodletting. It fast forward us back in time. It starts us off where it shows Lori. It shows us pre-apocalypse. Lori is having a conversation with a friend. It looks like they're outside of a school, like moms are waiting probably to pick up their son, so she's waiting to pick up Carl. If you remember from the very first episode, Rick is sitting in a police car with Shane, and Shane is asking Rick about how's Lori, how things going at home, and he talked about an argument they had, and talked about how she said, like, sometimes I wonder if you care at all. Sound like there was riff in the marriage. And we're getting a similar thing here. Lori is talking to her friend. Basically, what kind of struck me was she said, yeah, we had a big fight. And she goes, what sucks is we had a big fight, but it wasn't his fault. And because her friend's like, oh yeah, men can be jerks. And she goes, no, like it was me. And she basically says, like, he tries to be reasonable. If we get in arguments, he tries to fix it. He tries to be reasonable. And she basically said, just once, I wish he'd get mad and blow up and yell. And she goes, that's probably horrible of me to want my husband to yell at me and be this way. And, he always tries to be nice. He always tries to fix things. He always tries to do this. And so it's very strange of, like, he's trying to do the right thing and you're mad at him. Then the big question that they had for Lori was, do you still love him? And she goes, I think so, but that's a question I have to ask myself. So their marriage is in a weird spot, and it seems like it's her fault. So it just ratifies Lori is not high on my list. Even like when I first ever watched this, I was like, rewatching this, it's still the same. So I'm glad my feelings for her are still the same. But now it kind of let you know kind of why maybe she gravitated to Shane. Rick's a tough guy, Shane's a tough guy, but Shane is that type of person that kind of is like going to say what's on his mind and doesn't care about your feelings type thing, whether he's right or wrong. So maybe that's why she kind of gravitated towards Shane. Now this is the time where Rick was shot, because you see Shane come up to her, and his look, she kind of knew. She goes, what happened? Like, is he alive? And so he said he's in surgery, and so he was shot, and he explained the situation as to what happened. There was, we saw it in the first episode, and Shane's just kind of like, it's my fault, and she goes, how am I going to tell Carl? And Carl comes out of school and she goes up to tell him, and just the look on Shane's face looking at Lori and Carl, like it's a weird look, you know. The acting's great that we just can't really tell. Is he looking at them like he, you know, like we all kind of know now he wants to be the husband or the father, be with them. So again, it kind of makes you wonder, like you said, he tries to save Rick, but then it's like, then you see this. So did he really like Lori this whole time? You know, all that stuff, but it kind of shows that they had a little riff in their marriage. And so was there a part of Lori that's like, she's in this apocalypse? Is she just doing this because she feels guilty from before? Does she feel guilty from whatever? Then we pick, so we that's how it starts off. So we're getting piece by piece is what's happened pre-apocalypse in certain things. I don't know if we'll get any more this season. The rest may have to be settled in the apocalypse. Then we pick up where we left off. We have Rick carrying Carl running, and then behind him you see Shane and another figure, and Rick's like, how far? And he said, you know, go to this house and ask for a man named Hershel. So this is the guy that must have shot Carl, and since he's alive, you could tell it was an accident. Now we get more characters. Rick comes across this farm. You have this barn. You have this house out in the middle of nowhere. We have a lady that says Dad, and we find out her name is Maggie. Then we have a guy come out, his name's Hershel, and more people that we can only assume is his family. Now he must be a doctor of some sorts. Immediately says like, ask if Carl has been, or this boy has been bitten. He said no, he was shot by your guy. And we found out the guy's name is Otis. He immediately takes Carl in, tries to help him, and he just gets all of these medical tools. You have to think he worked in some kind of medical field. And then Shane and Otis finally catch up, and then they get right to work on Carl. And this is a tough moment for Rick, because Rick is already playing the guilty game with the CDC. He's playing the guilty game with losing Sophia. He's taking the blame for that because people are blaming him. When we talked in the last episode, Lori gave a speech about how they shouldn't. So now they have to work on this, and Rick's like, Lori doesn't know, like they don't know. And if we fast forward to the group that was separated, you know, they're looking for Sophia, still trying to get back to the highway. They said it was known that they heard a gunshot. Why would it just be one gunshot? So Lori can kind of tell something's not right, which is a good point that Rick's made. Like she has no idea. And so then they just spend a lot of time with Hershel trying to go to work. Rick's the same blood type as Carl, so Rick can't leave. So that way they can give blood to Carl. A tough scene to watch was Carl screaming, and they needed blood from Rick. Hershel had told them that the bullet was slowed down by the deer, but since the bullet was slowed down by the deer, it didn't go clean through Carl's body. So when a bullet enters your body, it like explodes into fragments. He says he's guessing about 6 fragments were exploded into Carl's body, and he's got to get them out. So he was trying to get one out. Carl's in pain, and it woke him up. He's in pain. That was a very tough scene to watch. And then you have Rick and Shane have 2 forms of dialogue. I believe right before Carl was in pain, Rick told Shane, like, he's kind of just rambling. He goes, when a girl goes missing, you go looking for the girl. Why did I let Carl come with me? I think you even said, don't let him come here. I should just let him go with Lori. And Shane's actually kind of being a good friend. You know, their relationship's on the rocks, and we all kind of know, like, we know what's going on with Shane and Lori. And he's just like, hey, you start doing that, that'll never leave you. You can't do that. Rick's wondering if he's being punished for something. Like, you know, he knows what it's like to be shot and try to survive, but you're doing it in the apocalypse without the type of... We don't know if this Hershel's a true doctor. We don't know. We don't have all the equipment. One dialogue I did like was Rick had give blood, so he's a little tired. He's very worried about Carl, and he's worried that Lori's not there to know it's the mom. And so Shane basically says, like, talks him out of it, like, hey, you're not leaving. I'll break your legs if you try to leave. Because if something ever happens to Carl and you're not here, you'll never live with yourself, and I'm not going to live with myself. So this is a moment that I like that they did with Shane, that Shane's losing himself, I think, because he slowly, we've seen in that first season, losing himself just a hair. You know, he was with Lori and Carl, and then Rick comes back, so all these feelings come in. Rick's kind of taken over the leadership. You know, he told Lori that he loved her, and so you have all this going through, and he's friends with Rick on top of it. So the Rick's back, but he's like, we're friends, we were partners, police officers. So I'm glad they had this dialogue, because it kind of brings them back down to reality a little bit, putting their friendship first. And then he tells them, like, hey, when you were in the hospital, Lori was very strong. She was very strong for you when you were in the surgery, when you're out of surgery, you're in your coma. He said, right now you have to dig deep and become strong like Lori was for Carl, and I'm here for you. So this was great dialogue. But of course, we're in the apocalypse, so nothing can, when it starts, things go bad, they can go worse, or when they start to go good, they'll go bad. Hershel's pretty much like, hey, I got one fragment out. He has small internal bleeding. The only way I can do this, I need a ton of supplies. And so we need them quickly. So Shane offers to go find this stuff. And Otis said that there was a high school where they, you know, during this time where there was medical equipment, they could go get it. There was walkers around, but they can try to go get it. And so Shane and Otis go off to try to find this. So again, Shane's kind of putting Rick's friendship first, and he likes Carl. He loves Carl, so that's a part of it. But I think in this moment, he's kind of putting, in this moment, and we'll see what happens. In this moment, he is putting aside his feelings for Lori and whatever with Rick to help, which, again, I think was great for them to do. You know, they're friends. They have to keep this going. And so it was great to see that. So Shane and Otis go off to try to find this equipment so they could try to save Carl. So they're off to go save Carl. And then we get back to our group. They determine that they cannot find Sophia right now. They have to go back and try in the morning. Andrea does get attacked by a walker. Now, as much as I don't like Andrea, you're like, God, she got attacked by a walker. Hopefully she's not going to get bit. Then you see Hershel's daughter, Maggie, come on a horse, like just on a horse with a bat, and wham on the walker and looking for Lori. So, you know, Rick's trying to figure out how to get to Lori, and then Maggie, and we find out their last name is Green, takes Lori, tells the rest of the group how to get off the highway, go find this farm to get her to Carl. So that happens, and as this is going on, T-Dog's, if you remember, T-Dog got cut on his arm. It's starting to become infected. He's starting to run a fever. They're trying to find him medicine, so they have to worry about that as well. Just another thing you have to worry about in the apocalypse of, it's easy for us to go down to CVS, Walmart, or wherever to get medicine. They have to find it. It's not just everywhere. And so they have to worry about T-Dog. Now you got Lori going with Maggie out to the farm to find Hershel and Rick and Carl. And again, these relationships are starting to become strained. They get back, you know, Daryl's like, she knew Rick's name, she knew Carl's name, we have to let her go. Dale's asking Andrea if she's okay, and she won't talk to him. So just a nice, this relationships are starting to riff. Then we kind of a little more about what's going through Hershel's mind. You know, Rick's admiring the farm. You find out it's been in Hershel's family, I think, for 165 years. And he starts talking about how, you know, like, we'll get through this. And Rick's trying to tell him, like, hey, we've lived in this. You guys have not lived in this. The CDC, we've been there. It's no longer a thing. There is no cure. The doctor we talked to has no cure. And he goes, I don't believe that. You know, Hershel seems to be a religious man. You know, he says he thanks God for his daughters being safe. He did lose his wife and stuff to this. But these people here, they're all they have left, you know, friends and family. And he said, you know, this is just nature. He goes, he talks about they went through the AIDS, they've gone through different pandemics or epidemics, and it's kind of weird we're going through one right now, with COVID. Talked about how this is nature correcting itself, and we get our butts kicked when we bounce back. Rick's like, I just can't believe that. I wish I could, but I can't. Hershel, you don't know. Like, as we know, we've seen what happens when they die. We've seen what happens with this. So Hershel seems to be a religious person. It seems like he'll be another voice, kind of like a Dale, like he's going to be this voice of reason. Then we get another sad moment. Lori comes in and sees Carl and everything and knows what's happened. And so that's what a lot of this episode has been, is dealing with Carl being shot and these sad moments. But then we find out that, well, Lori's there, that we go through these sad moments, and then she goes, so when Shane comes back with the idiot that shot my son, and he's like, no, his name's Otis. And so she's grieving. She thoughts are going through her mind, but she's kind of being an asshole, if you want me to be honest, and, Rick's like, it was an accident. Hershel says it was an accident. Rick's saying that they're trying to do everything they can to make it right. And she goes, I'll take that under advisement. He's the idiot that shot my son, which I get, I get it. Hershel's like, I'll perform the surgery the best I can. And she goes, okay, so because you're a doctor, you've done this before. And he said, in a sense. What do you mean in a sense? And then we find out that he's a veterinarian. And so this doubt comes over her face of like, I don't want you touching my son. So like right here is another moment. I get the apocalypse. We're not in this moment, Just seems a little prissy, a little, stuck up, as that's the way Lori is sometimes to me during this. Maybe she likes that Rick's the leader because she's like second in command, basically, like, first lady type stuff. But right there is like, I get it, but you're in the apocalypse. It's not like there's doctors lying around. The fact that he could have just said, screw you guys, I'm not going to do this. So she needs to get over herself and just, he got one bullet out. He understands this equipment. He understands what's going on. He's going to do the best he can. He's trying to make it right. You can't just go find a doctor. He doesn't have that kind of time. So Lori needs to get over herself and just let Hershel do what he's trying to do. We fast forward to the group. They get Dale and T-Dog get notified of what happened, and we again, Walking Dead's good at being very serious and finding a little humor. They come with a plan of they don't know what to do with Sophia, so they want to stay. They want to send Glenn out to this farm and take T-Dog because he's got an infection. They have to figure out how to help him. Stay to see if Sophia shows up, and then they're gonna get a sign to try to tell her to stay put, or tell her to go to tell her what to kind of do, make a sign, leave some supplies if she shows up. So they want to stay, and then Daryl goes, why don't you guys ask me for medicine, and pulls out a bunch of stuff from Merle, gives it a bunch of medication. It's like, Merle got the clap on occasion, so he had this. Like, so it's just a little humor to help out T-Dog. Then we find out that, like, Carl doesn't have much time. He needs the stuff now. Rick wants to go help Lori, and him getting a yelling match, and because Rick always wants to go help out people. Now we got to go to Shane and Otis. They see that there is a ton of walkers at this place, and they have a great idea. They use flares because if you remember, they talk about walkers are attracted to noise. If you smell alive, that's what they go to. So noise, smell. So the flares really distract them. They're able to get all the supplies they look like they need. Then when they try to get out, the flares kind of go off. They're not as powerful. They get found out, and we end with them being trapped in a school, and that's how this episode ends. So again, we're starting to get into kind of cliffhangers, kind of leaving us a bunch of questions unanswered. So now what's Shane and Otis going to do? How are they going to get out of this one? They have all the supplies. Carl needs them. They are trapped. Carl's on his deathbed. The group is divided. They're weaker. So again, they're going through each episode's apocalypse, but man, I forgot how good some of these episodes were. Like this episode didn't have a ton of, I don't know if you want to call this a filler episode, but like stuff happens. So in The Walking Dead, you have your big action-packed episodes. You have filler episodes. Then you have a lot of setting up / dialogue. And this episode was kind of that dialogue, setting things up for later on. So we have Shane and Otis trapped. Carl's on his deathbed. Exciting stuff's about to happen. Can't see them letting Carl go or anything else, but group's divided. You're meeting more people in this group with Hershel, and them seem like very good people. So again, this is that dialogue type episode to set something up. But that's it. So next time on the podcast, we'll go to season 2, episode 3. Moving right along, we only have 13 episodes in this season. And then the rest will be 16 because The Walking Dead just became more popular and they were able to get more episodes. Again, thanks everybody who watches or listens. The audio version can be found anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Please follow them, subscribe to it, please try to give it a 4 or 5 star review, leave some type of review on there. The video version can be found on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. That's my other podcast, which a bunch of football, non-football, Marvel, sports stuff. And if you please click the subscribe button, go to the playlist section. There'll be that All Things Dead podcast playlist section. Please check it out. Again, thank you guys so much for listening and or watching, and we'll see you guys next time.